Collective Shout, the Australian activist group behind recent adult game censorship on Steam and itch.io, have proclaimed in an interview that they're going after all salacious depictions of women in games, whether they're illegal or not. We have to be the only gaming news show brave enough to ask, is this the end of all horny games?
I mean, yeah, where do you draw the line, right? Between something that's playfully horny or objectifying women, which is kind of the whole idea. So yeah, there's an interview here. Jack Connor, writing for Tweaktown, interviewed Campaign Shout campaign manager Caitlin Roper via email, which revealed the group's true objectives.
So we're going to report the highlights, but you should give the full interview a read. You can find a link in our description. Really, it's great.
Yeah, it's a poignant case powerfully made, I guess, is a good way to describe it. When asked if Collective Shout would call for the removal of games featuring other illegal activities like murder, that's always the comparison, Roper responded saying legality isn't really the basis of their campaign.
Aha! Okay, well, here's the quote. We call out this objectification and abusive depictions of women and girls even when they are not illegal. Legality is not the defining factor. It is about documented evidence of harm to women and girls. We object to content that harms the status of women and girls, that objectifies and dehumanizes them, regardless of legal or illegal status. In some cases, of course, the content we object to is illegal, as was the case here. And I think they're talking about the Steam censorship.
Yeah, it's specifically that content in Australia. Kind of the networks that were hosting that content is, I guess, would likely be illegal if the Australian classification board's got to look at it. So that's kind of where it stemmed from and where we presume they get the leverage over the payment processors that then forced Steam and itch to take their games down.
Yeah, Roper also deflects a lot of the responsibility for all the disruption, saying that the platforms were already negligent in allowing such content in the first place.
Yeah, this is in response to, what would you say to people whose lives have been disrupted or income has been disrupted? Roper replied, quote, I would say that if Steam and itch.io had been moderating their platform as they should have, there would have been no need to temporarily delist games to ensure they were not in violation of their policies.
I don't know if I buy that one. In a separate answer, Roper writes that, quote, payment processors get to determine if they do not want to host illegal content, including rape, sexual violence, incest, child sexual abuse, and exploitation, and bestiality, which they had already determined, and so they should.
But yeah, it's the platforms shouldn't have had it in the first place, and the payment processors are the ones who get to decide, and they decided. You don't have to agree with that. That's just where they're coming from. And to those who would accuse Collective Shout's actions as just rote censorship of an art form, Roper responds that, and this is a pretty powerful statement, quote, nobody has a human right to simulate and enact fantasies of rape and extreme violence against women. Not being able to access rape games from popular gaming platforms is a minor inconvenience, not a violation of a person's rights.
We'll get into all the speculation and opinion after, because there's a lot of stuff to say here, but this is just so you hear the Collective Shout side of things. They say an example of the link between exploitative sexual violence in games and real life is happening to them now, because unfortunately some folks gotta take it there.
Yeah, this is the gross part. Roper said, quote, based on the response to our campaign, men engaging in criminal threats to rape and kill us, doxing us, creating and distributing illegal image-based abuse, porn made with our faces, revenge porn, basically, sending us violent porn and illegal CSAM, child sexual abuse material. It is clear that many of the men defending their rape games perpetrate crimes of violence against women because they are doing it to us right now.
I would actually believe her when she's saying this about whether or not she's getting revenge porn and, AI porn and all that stuff sent to them. This happens all the time on the internet. I mean, it's happened to me. So if it happens to me, it's going to happen to her in spades.
Yeah, absolutely. Luckily for us, they're reporting these folks to the FBI for revenge porn, which is illegal. So this could mean serious consequences for some very angry degenerates out there.
Interviewer Jack Connor asked some interesting questions comparing Collective Shout's stance on sexual violence to other crimes or the implications of payment processor leverage, to which Roper universally replied the Collective Shout is only focused on the sexual objectification and exploitation of women and girls in media.
Yeah, that's a bit disappointing because I think a lot of the hardline thinking here doesn't or can't hold up outside of this specific issue. So they kind of refuse to comment or extrapolate, which is smart, but also frustrating.
Yeah, Lawrence, you're right. In one partial non-answer, when asked about the difference between exploitative and consensual fantasy, Roper said that in all the games she reviewed tagged with rape or incest on Steam, she, quote, didn't come across anything that was intended as consensual violence.
Yeah, I suppose to some degree that's open to interpretation, but there's also not a lot to interpret with a lot of these games. I think that's where I land on this, regardless of all of the boundaries that they've chosen to draw for their ideological battle. I would like to believe in the possibility of artistry when addressing these topics. I don't think that any media that objectifies a woman or women is bad just because of that. I think it's possible to do that and have fun with it, or to tell a story that does that but also comment on it. I can think of several, in my own life, films that I've watched, games that I've played that do feature, non-consensual sexual violence, but do it in a way that's not meant to titillate the audience and not meant to it's not meant to be pornographic, really. But that last statement from Roper, again, you're relying on her judgment, and of course she's going to portray things in a particular way. But still, yes, the vast majority of all of the things I've seen, not from Itch, they had to delist everything, but specifically what I saw got taken off of Steam. I didn't see a lot of artistry there. So, on one hand, I'm very scared of the implications of taking this philosophy and applying it broadly, but I think the way it's been applied now, although troubling, we didn't really lose anything of artistic merit, again, just on Steam. What happened to Itch is unfortunate. And also, the revelation that payment processors have this kind of power is also uncomfortable. But yeah, I'm torn between, I guess, the ideology and the reality. And I guess that's a very tricky boundary in this particular on this particular subject.
Yeah, and every single person I feel like has a different interpretation of that. I really do agree a lot with what Roper is saying throughout this whole thing. And if they really are going to draw the hard line at objectification and exploitation of women in a non-consensual sense in a video game or movie or television, great, perfect, totally fine with all that. The question is, are they going to stop there? That's really what I want to know. Generally, these groups don't stop there. They decide that there's a line even further down the road that they've all right, you know what? Anytime anybody gets shot in the head, we don't like that. And then they go after that. So it's like I really do agree with her in this specific interview, but I worry. And as so many of comments have said, and so many Reddit threads and all this is like slippery slope, right? So maybe they'll stop there. I think what Lawrence just said is actually more important and scary, which is that payment processors can decide to shut down whatever they want, whenever they want, because everybody, hails to the almighty dollar. So that, in my opinion, is more scary than Roper going after non-consensual violence towards women. The payment processors thing, I think we should still continue on that thread of let's start to actually hammer these people and be like, hey, whoa, you can't do, just because you've decided that something is, by the way, quote, illegal, which Roper doesn't even care about at this point. If payment processors say it's illegal or whatever, sometimes maybe they'll be like, you know what, it's not illegal, but we object to it. Then they could start clamping down and telling Steam and Itch and all sorts of other places, PayPal, to stop taking payments, and that's very bad. So I think the payment processors portion of this story is actually the more important section of this that maybe requires some legislation and some collective action on our parts as well.
Yeah, I've only thought through it in a vacuum, of course, but I'm not quite sure what the alternative is. I guess what emerges is kind of what we already have, which is that the unsavory stuff gets put in the back room, and that there are specific businesses that pop up to manage and sell that stuff, and they kind of shoulder the enhanced financial risk. I guess the risk is you get sued. I'm not quite sure what, on a pure business level, the cost of processing of selling an indie pixel game about corruption or whatever, and then a very questionable game about rape and incest, as a product, and as the cost of transmitting that data over wires, it's exactly the same. So I'm assuming that the risk is that you vend some bad content to the wrong party and then you get sued for it. So yeah, just having a blanket policy of we don't sell this kind of product because of the associated risks. I understand why a private company should be able to do that. So yeah, theoretically then that opens up space for another private company to come in and say, oh, I'm fine with that. So yeah, really, I think it matters. Like it just drives it all to the dark web, I guess, depending on how verboten it becomes. Which sucks because, kind of like I was saying, I believe and have myself seen content that has some of this questionable material in it, and I think the tragedy would be if artistically valid content gets demoted to be next to smut, and it's the kind of thing that you have to go, into the back room where there's dudes jerking off everywhere just to see anything that tries to deal with adult topics like sexual assault and sexual violence. Yeah, I don't want that to happen. The only thing I can point to is that it really hasn't happened yet, but yeah, it's all a slippery slope problem, and they're very real. So it's worth being worried. I'm kind of waiting for when Toe seriously goes over the line, because the itch thing is pretty bad, but it's also like it's a confluence of a lot of events. It wasn't just the push for censorship. It was kind of the fact that website is just kind of a bulletin board for indie devs. So yeah, I kind of, when seeing it from all angles, I just can't find a simple solution in there. The only ray of hope that I saw that it's really not that bad is in looking at the new and trending tab on Steam. MILFs in Paris is right in the middle, and you're one click away from seeing some very well-endowed ladies having a good time in the City of Lights. So there's still smut, and it's not hard to find. It's just right now, it was a very, at least on Steam, trying to qualify everything I say here, a relatively small group of games that, didn't even have the merit that MILFs in Paris seems to offer.
Yeah, and like you said, itch.io is a much larger issue for indie devs, and we do worry for our indie devs. We don't want our indie devs to get demoted with, the 20 games that are about rape that fuck it up for the other thousands. So I'm more worried about that portion of this story. Steam seems to, again, they generally do have a pretty good handle on this, and they always have in terms of censorship and things like that. Steam's always done a pretty good job, a libertarian job of this, and they keep it up. So I'm glad to see that they're doing that. But itch.io is the larger issue. Either way, I would encourage everybody to start looking into petitions and calling your legislator about this stuff, because obviously we make art here. I know you probably like art. This isn't art, but it truly is. Everything that anybody makes creatively is art. So we make art here. We want to defend all art that has meaning. There is a line. There truly is a line when it comes to art. It's like if you're making art that is only encouraging violence towards people and things like that, then we might have to start talking. We're gonna have a little bit of talk there.
Yeah, a lot of online art these days is sycophantic, basically like telling the audience what they want to hear, leaning into the validation of the audience, and that's because it performs well, because you can make money off of it. So it really just becomes what does the machine tell me I need to say? That's all I'm going to say back. You could argue there's art in that. I don't really see it. I feel like art has got to come from a place of intent. Certainly, artworks can be accidental, but I don't think if you're just setting out to do exactly what the machine is telling you to do, then necessarily a lot of valid art is going to get made in that context. So, with that said, our bravery makes this art, Bruce. We're willing to say what needs to be said, and that makes us brave, and this content brave, and you brave for watching. That's right. Inside Games is on your side. Yeah, thank you, Bruce. That's an excellent segue. So yeah, we were talking about itch. There's a great deal out there right now. This isn't a free game, but it is an minimum $8 bundle for 382 indie games and novels and other works and things like that. This is on itch, all right, so they're not all going to be barn burners, but there's a lot of interesting stuff there on a mild scroll. There's some notable games. Coffee Talk is like a coffee making sim. It's kind of produced VVV. So there's some like older but premium indie games in there. But yeah, you'll definitely find a couple of evenings of entertainment playing a bunch of random indie games, and it all goes to Palestine support, the peace charity campaign. They're partnering with UNRWA USA, who will receive funds and grant them to a UN agency in support of direct humanitarian aid in Palestine. There you go. You can check it out. That's absolutely necessary. I'm glad that they're doing that. And 382 games can't beat it. So totally worth it. Yeah, you divide that out. Hey, that's you're making money on these games, basically. Speaking of making money, let's chat about an indie game, or at least I guess a premium indie. I don't even know where the line is anymore. Bruce, you've been playing Waterpark Simulator, right? What's the story there? What's this game like?
No, this is a fully indie. It is developed and published by the same person, and they are, I believe, a content creator who made a simulator game called Waterpark Simulator. And Waterpark Simulator could be like one of the thousands of other simulators that I've played that I've kind of been like, whatever, move on. And I just happened to give this a shot a couple of weeks ago. They sent me a code, probably because they know I play a lot of simulators. And I fired it up and I was like, this is actually really fun. And the reason it's fun is obviously, yes, there's a lot of simulating in the sense that you run a business. I love these simulators when you run a business and you hire people and let the AI do your work, right? So then you stand around and yell at them. It's my favorite. But also, there's a lot of really fun ragdolling in this game that makes the game funny. So like lots of fun, mishaps, a comedy of errors is happening around you the entire time, which it should. You're simulating a water park, right? Like, of course, you're gonna have injuries and people dying and like tripping, they're throwing up and getting drunk and like, it's great. So they really have done a good job of mashing the comedy with the actual simulator, because some of these simulators can get really serious and way too boring. But this does both. And like I said, I think I've played 20 hours of it. It's like $13. It's totally worth it. And people that I didn't recommend it or anything. I just streamed it and I played it, and people were like, "I bought this game and I love it. I can't stop playing." I'm like, I never would have guessed. Like, I really just, the simulators are really, there's a really hit or miss aspect to playing simulators on Steam, but this one's pretty good. And I would recommend it if you have any interest in any simulator. Plus, it's just kind of funny.
Okay, so while you're playing, you're seeing like people sloshing around in rides and bunking around into things, and okay, that's perfect, man.
Yeah, your character can ragdoll as much as any other character too. So like, there's lots of fun. Like they really have put the emphasis on the ragdoll, which they know is always fun. I mean, like pretty much always funny in video games.
Yeah, there's been a massive lack of comedic ragdolling in games lately, so I'm super glad. I mean, Battlefield 6 has got some good ones, so I'm looking forward to that. But
it does.
That makes a lot of sense, thinking about bodies just getting flushed down a toilet over and over again while you're like, do you get to make your own rides? Can you make them like intentionally violent to slosh people around?
So you don't get to make your own rides. You basically you're upgrading to bigger and better rides. Like your Waterpark Simulator literally just starts out with pools and a diving board. It's nothing. It takes a little bit to get to the bigger rides, but the bigger rides themselves were... I've actually had a dev in my chat most of the time coming in and being like, what should we fix? And things like that. Most of the rides, the big rides that they've designed, the devs themselves, will hurt people. on purpose. They're like made to hurt people. So sometimes you'll see like bodies fly out of a slide and stuff. And like sometimes it just happens and other times it doesn't. So they've done a good job. Like it's not fully customizable, but there's still lots of funny in those crazy rides.
Oh, that's so rad. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the info, Bruce. Waterpark Sim. You said it was like $13. Damn, that's a deal.
Yeah, totally worth it. We'd also like to thank some patrons that have given us the greatest gift of all, creative independence. Until maybe YouTube has shadow banned us or something. Who knows?
Yeah. We've been getting buried lately. What's going on? No one's watching videos anymore, but we're going to be here doing it until we turn into skeletons at our keyboards. So look forward to that. But thank you for the support in the meantime. Thank you very much, Wesley Mullins, Pablo Garcia, Baron 5X, and Versalite. I was actually talking with Versalite a bit. They had to tangle with Patreon support to get like a payment issue resolved so they could support the show. So thank you for your patience there, and thank you very much for the support. You're the reason we get to do this show. So thank you. If you enjoyed the show, consider dropping a little subscription on YouTube, and we'll see you tomorrow on Inside Games.